Thank you, and welcome to the Patriots 300 Level Podcast. My name's Kevin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Eric. Welcome back to our third episode, and you're in for a treat today with an extra long episode since we're going to be off next week. But be on the lookout for our blog, which will be starting soon, and we'll link to that on our Twitter. You could follow us, again, at Patriots 300 Level Pod on Twitter. And for those of you joining for the first time, we're both two season ticket holders that sit in the 300 level section. We enjoy Patriots and breaking down each game and transaction. So we figured we'd start a podcast and see where that takes us. So, Eric, I think the first thing that we'd like to talk about today would just be the Jets game and recap kind of what went on there, kind of high points, low points, and then get in a little bit further into the game with that. So why don't we just start off first, just talking about the high points of the game? What did you like? What did you think worked out really well for the Patriots in that game?
Yeah, good things to start off talking about first. I'd say you have to start off with no turnovers. The Patriots had no turnovers at all during the game compared to for the previous week, 2 loss. And then on defense, they forced 4 interceptions. Granted, I don't know how much they made the play, so you have to give them credit for that. But I don't know how much credit you can really give the Patriots defense and scheme. First interception, bad throw by Wilson. It was a great play by McCourty to tip it and Jackson to get it. Second throw, receiver was wide open, completely overthrew him. It went in the receiver's hands, but he should have caught it, but it was an overthrow of a guy open. Went right into, I believe it was Adrian Phillips' hands for the second interception. Mm-hmm. Third one and fourth one to McCourty and JC Jackson were just completely awful throws. So like the Patriots made plays and they made the most of them, but I think it was just, I don't know how much credit you give the Patriots defense for how they played Wilson or just how bad Wilson was. But I mean, at least it's encouraging considering how shaky the secondary was last week to see that performance. So that's at least a good thing. Then another high point I'd say is Mac Jones. I know he didn't have as good of stats this week. He only threw for less than 200 yards and have a touchdown, but he pretty much ran the same offense. He was taking whatever the defense was giving him, even though it was short, might be short passes or things like that. I think his first 7 completions were for like 27 yards, but he was just taking what the defense was giving him, wasn't forcing anything, wasn't making any turnovers. So I'd say those were some high points.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I think one of the things that kind of helped with the defensive game plan was it was simple, but it also kind of forced Wilson into making these mistakes. It wasn't anything crazy of scheme that they were doing, but they were basically only rushing 4 at a time in the first half of the game and dropping everyone back. So allowing Wilson to have it take his time and kind of force those throws. And I think that's something that was kind of the book on him, that he's kind of a gunslinger and something that he'll have to kind of tidy up a little bit as it goes on. He can't go making some of these throws that he used to make in college because obviously the defense is better in the NFL and something that he's going to have to get used to. The game speed and the talent and that sort of stuff. I do think that he is uber talented, and I think that if he is on a different team, I think his development could be a lot better. I'm just worried for his sake that the same thing could happen to him as what happened to Sam Darnold on that team. I think Darnold's pretty talented too. I was actually, during the offseason, he was someone I was actually hoping the Patriots could try and target.
You and me have both been big on him the past couple of years. Yeah. Even though like his performance hasn't shown it, just knowing the situation he's been in and the talent he has.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we're starting to see that in Carolina and see what they're doing there. So it should be interesting to see how he keeps on progressing there. I think one of the other high points, other than just how the defense had those interceptions, had those turnovers, I think we started seeing a little bit of breakthrough from Lawrence Guy. Not much, because I still think the whole defensive line as a whole wasn't good, and we'll get to that and when we start talking a little bit the low points, but having kind of see a little resurgence for him. And then James White had kind of a breakout day for him. He's shown that he's back. I think last year is kind of how the Patriots thought. It was more of an anomaly than anything. He losing his father, having that happen to his mother. Just that he wasn't in the right frame in mind last year. Who could be with that happening? And with Cam being the quarterback too, he's not getting the same types of passes or anything like that. So,
Yeah.
I
I'd
think.
say. Oh,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'd say going along with James White, I agree that was a tough situation for him last year. I
Mhm.
thought just watching his play, though, it just seemed like he lacked the explosion
Mhm.
or just like the cutting where he'd be able to make a guy miss and then get the first down, whereas last year he couldn't. But it seems that at least through two games that he's the James White from 2 years ago,
Mhm.
which is a good sign for the Patriots.
Yep. Yeah. No, he looks a lot better now than he did last year. So I think that was a big high point. So I think the run game in general and James White was probably my biggest high point of the game. So
I'm
going
actually
down.
going
Oh,
to uh, disagree a little bit on the run game.
okay.
So I actually thought the run game was a little disappointing.
Mhm.
Part of it might be because they were without Trent Brown, but not James White. Uh, Harris had the 26-yard great touchdown run, one of
Mhm.
the best runs you'll see this season, and you saw the effort by the pretty much the rest of the offense to try and push him in.
Mhm.
But if you take out that play, where is it? Harris only ran for, I believe, 52 yards on, or let me see. He ran for 40. Sorry, I have it right here. Should have. Da, 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 da. 36 yards on 15 carries if you take away
Mhm.
that 26-yard touchdown run. So you take away that one run, he was averaging 2.4 yards per carry. The Patriots offense ran for 101 yards on 24 carries, but like I said, the 26-yard run by Harris, and then Bourne had a 16-yard run. You take away those two plays, it was 59 yards on 22 carries, less than 3 yards a attempt. So I think that it was a little could have been better, and I thought it was a little disappointing first game too, just their run game, because I was expecting, especially with a rookie quarterback, you want their run game to average maybe 140
Mhm.
yards a game, give or take, depending on the opponent.
Yep. No, I think when I was talking about running game, I meant the running backs in general, how their performance was. I think a lot of the lack of yardage can be attributed to the offensive line. And I think that's something that we're going to get into a little bit in a minute. So why don't we move on to just the low points, and then we can kind of talk more about that based on what you're thinking for the running game and how you're a little disappointed. But what would you say the low points would be on your end?
I mean, I think you have to start with offensive line.
Mhm.
Durant was horrendous. And then when Trent Brown went down week one, when Haran came in, he was horrendous. So
Mhm.
if this Trent Brown situation is going to be a lingering injury, like I believe it was in Oakland, I'm not
Mhm.
sure if it was the same calf or if it was the same type of injury, but it makes you be concerned about what they have to do going forward. They Isaiah Wynn wasn't good
Mhm.
through two games this year. I think yesterday or on Sunday he allowed three pressures. The previous game he allowed four. He's allowed seven pressures in two games. Last year he allowed 16 all year. So there, Mac Jones has been getting hit the first two games, which isn't good. And then it makes you wonder also with Win, is it just it's trying to get into the season, get into the swing of things, considering the off season, the training camp not being what it used to be in the NFL, or if it's even Joe Thuney leaving the Patriots going to the Chiefs, if that's having a bigger effect because the left side of the line, even though Win has seemed pretty decent so far, if it's just a big step down where Win has to take over a little more than he normally had to.
Mhm. No, I think that's a big point and something that we'll have to be just look into a little bit further and keep an eye on. I think that Tooney call out is a big one. So is it was Tooney kind of holding up that left side of the line, and it gave Win a little bit less to worry about, or also are we just overrating how Win was because he barely played at all? So I
Yeah.
think he played maybe a third of all the games that he could have been possibly active in. So it could be that too, but definitely I would say overall low point, the lowest thing and most concerning part was the offensive line. I don't think I think that has the most chance of getting better. So it's not something I'm most concerned about going forward. But in the game itself, I would say the worst part of the game was the offensive line, especially the tackles. Wynn was horrible. He was on the ground multiple plays. He was just getting thrown around. He wasn't good with the outside rush. And then no matter who was at right tackle, Haran or Durant were not good. Haran played a little bit better after coming in, because Durant was awful. He was terrible.
Yeah.
But I think those two tackle spots were not great. And the only really positive on the line was Dave Andrews, which he was last week too. So I think we're really glad to have him back. But I think they really need to shore up those tackle spots. And I think the second biggest part that I came away with was still the run defense. I think the Jets would have been better off if they didn't throw the ball a single time in the game. They could have had a much closer game if they just ran the ball every single down, because the Patriots defense is challenged there. And I think part of it starts with Godchow. He's not looking as good as he was back in Miami. He's not holding the point of attack. He's getting thrown backwards. Same with Guy. Guy was looking a little bit better this game. So I am starting to hope that it's just maybe just getting kind of into the season for him.
Yeah. Guy did have that big play out there down. I believe it was 3rd and 2 inside the 10, and he forced the Jets to get a field goal instead of a touchdown.
Yeah, that was a Guy play from last year. That was the type of play that we're used to seeing with him. And I'm just hoping that maybe that might spark him in the right direction with that. But Godchow, I think, is probably the most concerning part right now. And then Barmore has been thrown around a little bit, but he's also shown some plays too. So hopefully it's something they can shore up and get together. And then also Dietrich Wise I don't know what the hell he's doing out there. He's not good. I guess he's got great arms, but they got to do something else. They got to put Uche in more, which they started to this game. So
I was actually going to comment on that. If you look at the 10 players that played either defensive end or defensive tackle, Wise had the second most snaps behind Judon. So I know how you're not a big fan of Wise, so just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I'm a fan of him in a 4-3 scheme. He is not a 3-4 defensive end. He's not big enough for it. And he doesn't hold. They just like him because of his arm length, and it's not something that translates well. His type of style for a 3-4 defense. They need someone a lot more explosive, a lot bigger, someone that can actually do more than what he does. And so I'm hoping that eventually Uche might take over more. And we started to see him playing a lot more this game towards the end. So I think we'll get into the right direction with that. So what would you say, going on to Mac Jones? I think you talked about him a little bit, but just kind of further breaking down what you saw from him, what you liked, what you disliked this week.
I mean, I thought he looked good. He wasn't doing anything too flashy, wasn't trying to take deep shots, but I think that's not a bad thing, especially for a rookie. First few weeks, first however many games, you want to make sure that he's making the right reads, and it seems like he was doing that. There's that one play where it was the flea flicker, and then Jonnu Smith was wide open, and they got the first down. I believe it was 10 plus yards on that. And the announcers were saying that Aguilar was open and he could have thrown it for a touchdown. But if you actually look at the film, the cornerback or defensive end who was covering him had the underneath. So it would have had to be a throw over the top near the corner of the end zone, which would have been a risky throw, whereas he had Jonnu Smith wide open for a first down. So it seemed like he made the right read on that. It's unfortunate that he's been getting hit as much as he has. I think that that's partially contributed to them just not airing it out as much as they potentially could have. But I mean, it looks like he has poise in the pocket and he's making just the right reads and right decisions.
Yep. And I think to kind of further go on to that flea flicker play, if you look at the tape, Aguilar was pretty deep down the field already. And by the time Jones would have been able to throw the ball, the cornerback would have been able to catch up to him because he would have been right close to the end zone anyway, and it would have not been an easy play to make. So even though he was open at the time, it took too long for Jones to get the ball to actually throw that. If they were maybe 10 yards further back, then yes, I would have said that it would have made more sense for him to throw there, try and get the big play. But the Patriots offense is predicated on taking the sure thing. So if that John move play, if a play is 98% chance of working, getting good yards, they'd rather go that than something more risky. So I could see why he did that, and it just makes sense why that happened. Yeah, I think Jones had a good day. I don't think it was as good as the Dolphins game, but I don't think he needed to be as good with that. They pretty much had the game in hand anyway. There were some stupid plays that he had that intentional grounding was one of them. There was the fumble play that can't happen, and they got lucky on that. So other things that he needs to kind of get better at, and you would expect with a rookie quarterback. So it's not anything too concerning. We just don't want to see those things keep piling up. So just hopeful with that. So I'd say if I probably grade the Dolphins game a B plus or an A minus for him, I would say this game, I'd say maybe C plus, B minus. I don't think
I'd agree.
I don't think it was anything spectacular, but I don't think it was anything bad either. So I think it was right around what you want him to do for that.
I'd say one thing is it's still even though it wasn't like spectacular, it's encouraging that he didn't take like a big step back. He took what the defense gave him, but I wouldn't really consider it a step back from Miami, even though it wasn't as good of a game for Miami. He was going up against a good defensive mind and the Jets head coach, who was the 49ers defensive coordinator. So he didn't look lost when he was playing quarterback. And he didn't have that step back that I was afraid he might after having a good first week.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. So something that a lot of people are talking about this week would just be, because we haven't had many big plays out of the offense this week or last week. Do you have any issue with any lack of aggressive play calling? What are your thoughts on what the play calling looks like? What are kind of your thoughts about the red zone issues that have been happening? Is it a lack of aggression in play calling? Is it a lack of the actual players? What do you think are your thoughts on that topic?
It's a good question, and I know a lot of people are bringing it up. I don't really have an issue with the play calling so far, at least to an extent. I think especially his first few games, you have to see what he can handle. You don't want to throw too much at him where he gets lost or flustered. He's, at least for the plays he's taking, he's just making the right reads. I think part of the reason why they haven't been able to air it deep is how bad the offensive line has been the first 2 weeks, especially at the tackle positions. So he's getting more pressure than you would like. So he doesn't have enough time to make his progressions. Also, the wide receivers, they're not getting as much separation at the line of scrimmage, which makes it tougher for them to be a cornerback, for instance. I'd say a couple things with play calling. I wish we saw a little more of Kendrick Bourne so far. He's looked flashy. It looks like he's been able to make some plays. He did have the fumble this game. I think they called it down but it was a fumble, even though they called
him forward progress.
Forward progress, yeah. But I mean, he's looked good. He didn't get too many snaps week 1, and then he didn't get much snaps after the fumble this game until he had the run later in the game. But I'd like to see a little more from him. I'd say the one thing I'm really missing so far is I still want them to utilize the tight ends more. Last week they had 9 catches. This week they had 7 catches for 70 yards, which is a good number, but I feel like having 2 really good tight ends can be a potential mismatch. I wonder part of it's by design. They're waiting to break that out when they're facing some of the better teams in the coming weeks: Saints, Buccaneers, and Cowboys, 3 of the next 4 games. So I wonder if that might be a little bit of it. I feel like they have that potential mismatch. And then when you're using your tight ends, it might allow, if you keep utilizing them more and more, it might allow there to be more openings at wide receiver or even bubble screens.
Yeah, I think you made a lot of valid points. One with the tight ends, I think it's only the second game, and they missed I would say the majority of camp, both of them. So it's going to take a little while for them to get kind of really thrown into the offense, understand all the play calling and that sort of stuff. So I think that's something we'll see of time. I don't think it's something deliberately just holding back to unveil against the Bucs or anything like that. I think it just works with the fact that they miss so much time in camp. It's going to take a while to get them integrated into the system and everything like that. I think one of the biggest issues, I don't really have an issue with their play calling. I think a lot of the plays, you can see what was going on in Josh's mind and how that play could have succeeded. I think the biggest issue right now is just lack of execution, especially with the offensive line. Like I was saying earlier, I don't really have an issue with the running backs, how they're playing. The majority of the reason are broken down run blocking schemes from either Owenu, Win, or the right tackle position. So that's one of the biggest issues right now. It's just the offensive line. It causes an issue everywhere. So the receivers, because they're not getting enough separation off the line, in order to have a bigger play, you need more time and protection. And Jones isn't getting that, so he has to take the shorter stuff. And a lot of the other issues just get just a lack of execution from just people not knowing where they're supposed to be at the right spot, or just not fundamentally doing the right thing. So I think it will get better at time, and I think we'll probably see it like every other Patriots team. Probably week 4, week 5, we'll start to see some progression with that, especially since the first few games are just an extension of the preseason, basically how the Patriots treat things. So I think we'll start seeing things more as it goes on. I don't have an issue with what Josh is calling or anything like that. I think he's making the right calls. I think it's just not being executed the right way. And again, I think the other thing too about the tight ends, which I think I forget to mention too, is even though they were hurt in training camp, and they get hurt a lot in the season. Henry, I don't think has ever played a full season
Yeah, he hasn't.
without getting hurt. So I think it's
Smith
something
has
you don't
though.
want to have him take too many shots early. I think
Yeah.
that would be one reason you might want to kind of slowly integrate them too.
Yeah, going along that point, Henry, I believe, misses a lot of games every year with different injuries.
Mhm.
Jonnu Smith, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he's played in 16 games every year but one.
Mhm.
And the one year he didn't, he played in 13 games. So, he was banged up a little bit this training camp, but I don't know if his durability is as big of a concern, at least compared to Henry's.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on, I'd say who would you have as your 3-up for this week?
I'd say first one has to be James White.
Mhm.
He was the leading receiver on Sunday, and he has the most catches so far this season for the Patriots, either
Mhm.
catches or receiving yards. So he's looked great. It looks like he's returning to his old self, which is good for the Patriots offense. I'd say the second one has to be J.C. Jackson.
Mhm.
He was one of my 3 down last week. I thought he just wasn't playing like the number one corner. This week, 2 interceptions, granted. One of them was a great deflection by McCourty. The second one was just thrown right to him. He did allow, I believe, 4 catches on 6 attempts, but it looked
Mhm.
like he was playing a little better than he was week 1, which is at least encouraging. And then I'd say my third one has to go. Even though it wasn't great, I'd still go with Mac Jones. He still looks like he has poise in the pocket. The
Mhm.
offensive line, I think, contributed a lot to what they were able to do and what he was able to do at quarterback. But through 2 games, he's averaged his completion percentage is around 74%, which is insane for a rookie,
Mhm.
let alone a good quarterback. Brady has, I think, the last few years has been a 65 completion percentage points. Granted,
Mhm.
it's a little different because he throws the ball away a little more to avoid a sack to protect himself, but still, just for a rookie quarterback, that's all you want is someone to be essentially a game manager, make the right throws, don't turn the ball over. And it looks like he hasn't lacked any confidence. So I'd say those are my 3 up.
Okay. So the first one, I would have the same as you, James White. Like we talked about, he had a breakout game. He's showing that he's back for this year. So, I think that he was definitely the number one up for the week. Next one I'd say would be Adrian Phillips. He's starting to show like he did last year. He's a monster on the defense. He's always around the ball. And I think he's one of their better defenders this year. And I think he showed again this week. He's always making plays. He's always in the right area. So I think they're really going to need him too if their linebacking core in the middle doesn't get more improved. Bentley this week was looking a little bit better, but he also goes into the wrong hole a lot of the times too. So Phillips, I think, is going to be a key player for them going forward, and I think he showed it again this week. Next one, I was between two people. I was between Harris and Uche. So I would go with Harris just because of that run that he had. It was one of the best runs you'll see. He went through, I think, 8 different defenders to get there. And then finally, Andrews and Jones helped push him through. But I would say Harris had a really good bounce back game for him after that fumble. And even that fumble from week 1, I don't put entirely on him. I think it was kind of the position he was put in, being gassed in there. He shouldn't have had that many kind of touches a row and not have someone kind of be a change of pace back for him. For your 3 down, who do you have for that?
I think easy one is Durant / backup right tackle,
Yep.
Heron or Huron. Just absolutely atrocious. And it just makes you concerned that if Trent Brown doesn't come back, is Mac Jones going to be able to make it through the season? Worry about injuries, especially if someone is becoming pretty much untouched to the quarterback, or if Trent Brown is out, if you have to consider moving Onwenu back to right tackle and then maybe put Karras at guard. I'd say other second one down is Isaiah Wynn for a lot of reasons I mentioned earlier. He's been pretty horrendous so far this year. Not as bad as Durant or Huron, but not good starting left tackle. Then third is actually Damian Harris. He had that great run, but besides that, it wasn't able to get much going in the run game, which I know we alluded to a little bit was partially due to the offensive line, but it seemed like he just wasn't able to make that second step to make someone miss, minus that touchdown run, to get some yards going, which I think part of the reason, since they weren't able to get the run game going, contributed a lot to them having pretty bad third down conversion rates, since they weren't able to get much on first and second down running the ball. They were 3 for 11 on third down, which I don't put just this one game. I don't think that's going to be a concern going forward, considering week 1, they were 11 of 16 on third down. So they're 50% through 2 games. But I think just the run game in general, actually running the ball, since they weren't able to get much going, I think that's contributed a decent bit to them not being able to convert.
Yeah, I would just say with Harris, I wouldn't point all of it being on him for being down. I think the majority was the offensive line in the position he was put in.
I'd say, though, for starting running back, especially seeing the strides he made last year, you'd want him to take that next step this year. And at least so far through 2 games, even take into account the defense or offensive line struggles, it doesn't look like he's taken that next steps to be a potential top 10, top 12 running back.
Yeah, well, we'll have to say.
Yeah. I think he has the talent, but at least through 2 games, that's why I've just been a little disappointed with him so far.
Yeah. So I think the first 2 for 2 downs, we both have lock and step. Both of the right tackles. Number 1, they were atrocious. They are terrible. And that needs to improve fast, or else we're going to have some issues if Trent Brown doesn't get back soon. But I'm not sure what they're going to have to do with that. If they're going to either, maybe Haran might play better because he looked a little bit better, or if they're going to try Kajus there, or like we said, move Karras to guard and then have Onwenu go to right tackle. Or they could do, if Brown comes back, which seeing Wynn's issues, they could move Wynn to guard, move Onwenu to right tackle, or move Wynn to right tackle and have Trent Brown go to left tackle. So they do have some moves that they can make. Especially because number 2, like you said, Wynn has not been good this year. He's been knocked on his ass multiple times the last 2 weeks. It just does not look the same like he used to. And I'm not sure if that's missing Tooney, like we said, or if it was just him not getting into it for the season or whatnot. So,
and then I think one interesting point is that they don't have Scarnecchia this year. They didn't have him last year either, but I believe also one of the coaches that they got rid of this offseason due to not complying with the vaccination was their offensive line coach or co-offensive line coach.
Yeah. And so I think I
wonder how much that contributes to it.
Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up with that too is this is year 2 without being with Scarnecchia. And if you remember back when Scarnecchia first retired, the year after he retired, that first year, they won the Super Bowl with Googs, and the line looked pretty good. And then the following year, Googs ended up getting fired because they were terrible. So
Yeah.
it could just be another thing too, where it may be year two after Skarnakia leaving, things might not be the same. A lot of his practices and implementations were remembered that first year, and maybe it might be something with that year two. So that's something that might need to be looked in as well.
Yeah.
So it could be a combination of things. And then number three was Godchow. See, he needs to be a lot better than he is. So I don't know what the issue is with him right now. I don't know if it's because he got paid this offseason, or if she's just having issues with the two gap scheme that they use. But he has to be a lot better, or they need to find someone else instead. And I think Henry Anderson had a few good plays this game, and he needs to be out there more. He's a good, dependable run blocking tackle, and I think they need to actually start utilizing it a little bit
tackle.
more. Yes. What did I say?
Run blocking.
Oh, run stuffing tackle. Yeah. So I think they might need to look into, and it is early in the season, so maybe they might be doing this anyway once they get more tape and more film. But I think utilizing Anderson a lot more may be necessary, especially if Godchow doesn't improve. So,
yeah, I'd agree.
So I should be interested. I'll be interested to see what happens with that. I think we already kind of talked about the improvements that are needed for the game.
I'd say one improvement though, which we touched a little bit, but not much, is them converting once they get on the opponent's side of the field.
Yeah.
So this week they were on the Jet side of the field 7 times, only got 2 touchdowns and 3 field goals, and had a punt it twice. And then it was pretty much the same issue against Miami too, which part of that was due to fumbles along with penalties that negated big plays. But just 2 weeks in a row, just not being able to convert on the other side of the field or in the red zone, which in the red zone has been an issue for the Patriots the last 3 or 4 years. So just something to consider. I think they have the personnel, better personnel on offense than probably last 2-3 years. So it might be able to get better, but just something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think once they start executing, I think that would definitely be the improvement that we'll see there. But they need to start playing better. They need to stop being able to make plays. And the thing that gets tough with that red area is that it's just a shortened area that the defense needs to cover. So it makes it a lot easier on the defense when they're in the red zone. So they only have to worry about 20 yards or 25 yards or say. Whereas when they're on the 50, they have to worry about defending most of the whole field. So it does make it tougher. So that way you need as much execution as you can get. So that would be the biggest improvement I'd say they need. And just the overall takeaway of the game for you.
I just thought that they played well. There were, like we mentioned, there are some places where they could have played better, but overall they were playing an inferior team and won by almost 20 points. So they took care of business, and they got the first win of the season, first win with Mac. And I think it's hopefully if they can correct some of their issues through the first 2 weeks, they'll at least be competitive in the upcoming tough weeks ahead.
Yep. No, I agree. I think it's a needed win that they needed. They can't go down 0-2 to start the year, especially the way the schedule's formatted for them. They really need to kind of start out the year with maybe 1 to 2 losses because the last half of the year is going to get really tough. So I think coming away with a win is just a good victory overall. I think there's a lot of things they need to still improve, but it'll give them the nice tape to kind of go through that and then get into the next couple weeks when they got to put their heads down.
Yep.
So I think the next thing we just kind of go over is kind of the news related to the week overall for the other teams. The Chiefs loss. Not sure if you got a chance to watch that game at all. What were your thoughts of the Ravens, how they handle it, and then maybe kind of your thoughts on them going for it on 4th and 1, the Ravens to steal the game?
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch most of it, but I was able to catch the highlights. I think even though Lamar Jackson had some good runs, I still think like him passing the ball, it's an issue that's going to hold the Ravens back from going far unless he's able to improve drastically. But I think the player talking about when they went for it, I think that's something that they had to do, knowing Patrick Mahomes. If you punt the ball to Mahomes with a minute plus to go and all they need is a field goal. So to go 30, 40, maybe 50 yards, it's
Mm-hmm.
not that tough for them considering they have probably the best offense in football, maybe second best if you give the
Mm-hmm.
best to Buccaneers. And that's something that I always, back in the Patriots heyday, when Brady was under center and they had one of the best offenses in football, whenever teams would punt the ball away, you just wonder why you're giving it to a good quarterback that's going, or one of the best quarterbacks that's chances are going to go the field and beat you. So I think
Mm-hmm.
the Ravens 100% made the right play there.
Yep. No, I agree. I think that it had a lot of balls though, just because it was on their own 42. If they missed this, they would have only needed probably not in really any yards because they're the Chiefs kicker um has a really big leg. And there was that game against the Chargers last year. He hit, I think, 3 57-yard field goals in a row or something like that. So that would have been close there. So if they did not get that, they would have definitely lost the game. So that did take a lot of stones to call that. But I do agree with the call doing that because, like you said, I think it would have been very unlikely the Chiefs didn't drive to get a field goal. So you needed to try and take the ball out of his hands. It basically reminded me kind of the 4th and 2 with
Yeah,
the
I was thinking the
Patriots.
same thing.
The 4th and 2 made a little bit more sense for the Patriots. Well, they both make sense, but the 4th and 2 was a little bit safer for the Patriots just because the Colts had to score, I think, a touchdown for that instead of a field goal. So it was a little bit tougher, even if they did miss that play. But it has the same kind of ramifications.
Yeah.
You're going to get slammed if you miss it. So I did think that it took some guts, but I also don't like the fact that he kind of pawned it off on his player to make the decision.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
don't ask the player to do that. You make up your mind if you're going for it, and you take the blame if it screws up.
Yeah.
He's doing that so that way if it does fail, but like, oh, I have all the faith in my players. The players want to go for it. I have the faith in them to execute. Whereas he didn't go saying, "Oh, this is my call. It's my fault," or anything like
Yeah.
that. So it's not the first time he's done this too. I think he's the biggest pansy in the league. I can't stand him.
I'd say second
Um,
biggest behind Tomlin, but that's
oh
another
yeah,
point for another day.
yeah. How about the Bills in Miami? Any thoughts on that? Is Josh
Um,
Allen back, or is it just the fact that Miami isn't that good?
I think it's Bills defense looked a lot better than they did week one. I
Mm-hmm.
think the Bills defense last year was a little bit of a disappointment, even though their offense was good.
Mm-hmm.
Because historically, the last 5, 6 years, Bills defense is always what carried them, and then their offense was lacking. And then last year, with their offense actually good, their defense was lacking. So it is a little bit concerning if their defense is hitting their strides from what they were a couple of years ago. But I
Mm-hmm.
think they were also going. I don't think we said this going into the Miami game. I don't think Miami is that good,
Mm-hmm.
especially on offense. And then with Tua going down, granted, I don't think Tua is good. I don't think Jacoby Brissett's great either. But I think it was a combination of Miami not being that good and the Bills just starting to figure stuff out again. I think
Yeah.
Josh Allen, at least stat wise, and just overall, he still hasn't looked like the Josh Allen from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Might just be it's still early on in the season, but it also could be that what we were saying the first episode too, that we still don't buy in Josh Allen, that
Mm-hmm.
last year was more of a fluke, and then he might regress a little bit, just like Jared Goff did after the Rams made it to the Super Bowl. I think Allen has more talent than Goff. Just we'll have to see, as this might be a concern if the Bills want to make it to the Super Bowl and be legit contenders. Josh Allen has to play like he did last year.
Yeah.
So the Bills look better, but that's at least for a Patriots point of view, him not looking the same is at least encouraging.
Yeah, I have to kind of agree on pretty much all you said. And I think just the fact that I'm not a big believer in Miami either. I think Tua is not good, and isn't able to kind of score as much as the Bills can. So I think that just kind of beats it up right there.
Yeah.
Kind of going on further in the league, there's this is kind of a good question just to think about. There are seven undefeated teams right now in the league, two of them being in the AFC. So we have the Raiders, Broncos, Bucks, Panthers, Rams, 49ers, and Cardinals. Which one of those teams don't you believe in at all? Which one do you think is kind of a fraud in this?
I'd say the team I don't believe in the most has to go with the Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
I just think they've played a weak weak team so far, and I don't fully buy into Teddy Bridgewater
Yeah.
as the quarterback going forward. I'd say other team I have to not fully buy in. I think they're going to be good, but I don't think they're going to be. You'll be talking about them potentially making it all the way. Is the Panthers? I think Darnold is definitely a step up. I think him in a new situation is good for him. Like we said earlier, we think he has the talent. He could be a good quarterback. I just don't think at the end of the season you're going to potentially be hearing the Panthers as a 15-2, 16-1 type team.
I think I have to disagree with that. I think the Panthers are going to be sneaky good this year. I think with Darnold as the quarterback, I think year two of that coaching staff, I just think that they're going to have a lot in place and are going to actually be pretty good this year. So it should be fun to see.
I think they'll make the playoffs. I think they're going to be a good team, but I don't think they're going to be like historically with the Patriots or the Colts or the Broncos and your Broncos under Peyton Manning in years back, where you're talking, do they have a shot of going undefeated, or are they going to be the number one seed going into the playoffs? Like, I don't think
anyone believes that, but
exactly.
I think they're going to be a lot.
I think they have a shot of making the playoffs.
Oh yeah, I think they're going to be definitely a lot better than most people think they will.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are kind of discounting them. I was going to say the Broncos too, just because I don't think I used to be a big fan of Bridgewater. I don't think he has the capability that he used to, just based on his injuries and his arm strength.
I agree.
So I think I would have said to them, just to pick another team, I would say the Raiders, because I'm not a big believer in the quarterback there. I don't think that he could have been one of the players that Brady was talking about when they had the chance to sign him. That they chose. I'm blanking on his name. Derek Carr chose him over Brady because I think Carr a lot of the times is something that he always would take. It's kind of similar to Jones, but different in the fact that a lot of the times Carr will always take the check down rather than a longer play. But where the difference is Jones hasn't had a longer play to throw to, whereas Carr will most of the time take a check down. But that's been different this year. This year we actually see him stretch the field and go for the deeper play, the harder play. And if he keeps this up, then that would be a big breakthrough for him. But it's not something that he's usually known to do. So, and I'm just not a believer in the Raiders at all. I think I love John Gruden, but I think the game's kind of passed them.
I'd agree.
Taking that much time off. So I would not knock on wood if I'm with him. So as much as I would love to, but I'm a big Gruden fan, but not as an actual coach. So I would probably put them in second. So kind of going the opposite direction, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 winless teams right now. Falcons, Vikings, Lions, Giants, Colts, Jaguars, and Jets. Are any of them do you actually believe in could actually do something this year, make playoffs, to actually have a pretty good year this year? Any of them do you think will turn this thing around?
I think out of all of them, I think you have to go with the Vikings first. They have loads of talent on offense and historically have a pretty good defense. They're also in a division that has started off the year pretty slow. No one in the division has 2 wins. Packers, they're probably going to win the division again, but Vikings have a shot depending on how things go. So I think you have to go with the Vikings. And then I'd say maybe the Colts if Carson Wentz doesn't keep getting hurt and turns into the Carson Wentz from 2017 before his injury.
Yeah, I think we're in lockstep here. I think Vikings would be the team I'd choose. They have the quarterback. They even have the quarterback of the future. I'm a pretty big fan of Kellen Mond, so eventually I think he'll be pretty good. But yeah, I think they have the best situation there, and we'll definitely turn this around. And then the Colts, though, I was thinking of them, but I'm just not a believer in Wentz now. I used to like him a lot. I think he was talented. He's just made of glass. He just can't stay healthy at all. And he's regressed a lot over the last few years.
And there's a lot of reports that he can't take coaching or constructive criticism.
Yeah. So it's just not something I used to like him, and I can't stand him now. I did not want the Patriots to get him. I'm glad that they didn't. So,
I agree.
All right. So going on, we have the Saints game coming up this week. Kind of two different teams, kind of team of play that the Saints have showed. Week one,
Yeah,
they looked awesome. Week two, they looked how you thought they would look with Jameis Winston. So kind of
not
what,
how I thought. I've been a big Jameis
yeah.
Winston guy.
Yeah, I think you're one of the few people that likes
Yeah.
crab legs. Um, so kind of what are your thoughts so far on what the Saints look like? What do you think they're gonna? What team do you think you're gonna see this week with them?
I think you're going to see something in the middle. I don't think that they're what they were against the Packers, blowing out the Packers, where some people thought Jameis Winston might win the MVP and looking like a team that might be a one, maybe two seed in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be that, but I don't think they're going to be as bad as they were against the Panthers. I think they're in being in the Bucs division. I think they're definitely have a good shot at the wild card, being anywhere from a 5 to 7 seed.
Mhm.
Um, so I think Jameis Winston will play better than he did last week. And then with Michael Thomas being out, that's definitely a plus for the Patriots, not having to cover one of the best wide receivers in the game.
Mhm.
Chris Hogan is one of their receivers. I know they're a little banged up, but with Chris Hogan, he had a touchdown, I believe, game one. Uh, with the Patriots secondary being as depleted as it is, you could possibly say it's a wash with Gilmore being out since Thomas is out as well. And we'll have to see how going up against probably you might not agree, but the best quarterback so far through week 3, at least. We'll see how the secondary does against them. I'd say my biggest area of concern is the Patriots covering Kamara out of the backfield. We saw the Dolphins take advantage of Bentley being in coverage in week 1, and we'll have to see what they do to stop that. Usually, Belichick always takes away a team's number one option. So I don't know if they'll maybe put a cornerback on Kamara or maybe a safety with Phillips or Duggar.
Mhm.
I don't think you can have a linebacker cover Kamara in the passing game. So
Yeah.
that should be an interesting step. And then also if the Patriots run game is able to stop Kamara as well.
Yep. No, I think that's you kind of hit the nail on the head with that. I think I would have to kind of agree. I think he's probably the best quarterback they face so far.
Yeah. I don't think that's saying much, but
Yeah, I think that's not saying much. I think Tua is not good. Wilson, he has the talent to be the best that they've seen, but he's just not there yet. And I don't think the being with the Jets helps anymore. So I think they need to kind of rein him in a little bit, not have him kind of sling it all over the place. Kind of restrict him. I think he could be a kind of mini Mahomes, but I think that's further down the line. But yeah, I think the quarterback here, yeah, he's all right. But he's definitely better than what they've seen so far. I think kind of in the middle, like you were saying, I don't think it's going to be atrocious. I don't think they're going to have a world-stopping team or anything like that. I think somewhere in the middle is a good spot. And Sean Payton is probably one of the best offensive game planners out there. So that's something that we'll have to see how he handles it. I think if he's smart, he's going to attack the run game and not throw as much. So not kind of put opportunities for crab legs to make some mistakes. So it should be interesting to see how the Patriots handle that. Like you said, Belichick likes to take away the biggest, the best area of that team, and right now that would be Kamara. I could definitely see Phillips being the one taking Kamara. I think he would have the best coverage of him for that. I don't think Doug would match up well just because he's a little bit slower. And he's not great in his route coverage yet. I think Duggar is a lot more beneficial when kind of being that pass rusher or run coverage type of person. So I think Phillips might be a really good person to kind of match up with Kamara, trying to take him out of the passing game. But they will have to try and do something with this run defense. I'm not sure what their plan will be for that, but I think definitely maybe kind of playing more of Anderson, less of Godchow, more of Uche, less of Wise are two things I can think off the top of my head, which they should be doing more of. So I think that would be kind of a big kind of matchup that we would see there. And I think definitely having Thomas out will be beneficial for them. So that way they don't have to worry about covering him, and having Gilmore out wouldn't be as negative for them.
Yeah.
So what would you think your outcome of the game would be for this?
I think it's going to be a close scoring game. I think it's
Mhm.
going to be a nail biter that comes down to the end, and hopefully it
Yeah.
doesn't give us a heart attack.
Yeah.
Like it seems like every year there's always those games, but
Mhm.
I think right now Patriots are favored by 3. I think it's going to be right around there. Patriots win
Mhm.
24-20. I think they'll still have a couple more issues in the red zone or in the 45 and within the opponent's 35-yard line, but I think they'll
Mhm.
be able to convert at least more than they had a couple weeks. So I think it's going to be close 24-20.
Yep, I think that that makes a lot of sense. What you will score. I was actually thinking probably a couple field goals, a couple touchdowns. So I was thinking 27-24 would be a good score for them. I think it's going to be definitely close. Sean Payton is a great coach, and I think he knows
Yeah.
Belichick a lot well. So I think it will be definitely close. I think the Patriots will just get over the line there. Bangla at -3. I'm not the biggest bet in the world, but I think if you match at -3, it's a wash, right? So
I think so. I'm not sure.
I don't know. We're not the biggest betters in the world, but if BetUS or anyone, any sort of betting company wants to sponsor us, we will become the best betters there is. So, but I would definitely, I would assume the Patriots win this one. I would pick the over on this, over 41.5. I think it'll be a little bit over that score. So I would
Yeah.
go the over there. Any other thoughts on the Saints?
Nope. I
Okay.
think we covered it.
So because we're off next week, I just want to give kind of some highlights of the Bucs game, areas of opportunity, concern, matchups, that sort of thing. So what do you think the areas of opportunity for the Patriots would be in this game?
It's a good question. And unfortunately, you're going on vacation next week, so we're not
Yep.
able to do this podcast because I'm going to the Buccaneers Rams game this upcoming Sunday. So I'm planning on scouting the team, and I think I could have given a more insightful conversation. But
Yeah.
I think one thing is out of anyone, area of
Mhm.
opportunity, no one knows Tom Brady and Gronk better than Bill.
Mhm.
It can go the other way around, saying no one knows Bill better than Tom. Maybe you could argue Brian Flores or something like that.
Mhm.
But I think Bill knows everything how to attack Brady after having done it in practice and seeing him for 20 plus years. So I think that's definitely an area of opportunity. I'm not sure how much advantage it will actually be when the game comes into effect, but I think that can definitely help in the scheming.
Mhm.
Another thing is, at least through 2 games, the Bucs defense hasn't looked anywhere like it was last year. In the playoffs, the Bucs defense pretty much carried them along. Brady played well, but not the defense is pretty much what carried them all the way to the Super Bowl and being
Mhm.
champions. And even though they're returning all their starters, they don't look like they were so far. It could just be like you said, the first few weeks are an extension of
Mhm.
training camp per se or preseason, but that's at least encouraging. Also, the Bucs' run game has been minimal through 2 games, and that was also a weakness last year for them. And so far, the Patriots' weakness on their defense has been their running game. So, since they at least haven't been able to run the ball, that's at least a good thing for the Patriots, since that's their area of weakness.
Mhm.
I think, considering how strong on paper the Patriots front seven is with all their linebackers, Judon, Uche, I think they'll be able to do some scheming to get some pressure up the middle against Brady, which he historically isn't able to. That's usually how, if you're to beat Brady, is you're getting pressure up the middle. And
Mhm.
then Christian Barmore is usually he's a good or pass rushing defensive tackle. So that
Mhm.
might be how you're able to get him off his kilter and get him into some potentially risky throws.
Yep. I think that the biggest thing areas of opportunity was just knowing what gives Brady trouble. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people know just by seeing it, but I think a lot of people fail to execute on that. I think the pressure of the middle is the biggest thing. I think Barmore would be a big part of this game. I think having Duggar rush, having Uche in there, having Judon, I think all of those factors, and then Hightower as well. He's always really good at rushing the passer. So
Yeah.
kind of mixing those things up, but coming from the middle, and that way you can throw Brady off, because you never want to rush him from the outside. That's how he can kind of tear you apart. So having that inside rush is the things that the Giants of old used to throw Brady off in the Super
Yep.
Bowls and all that sort of thing. So having that pass rush up the middle is the biggest thing that they need to do. And I think the other thing that we've seen is Brady, as he's gotten older too, the more pass rush he gets, the quicker he is to actually not step into the ball, and he'll actually throw off his back foot, and that's when he'll get picked off. So that's why you've seen his interceptions go up over the last few years, just because he doesn't want to get hit now, and he's not stepping into the ball. He's stepping away from it, and he's trying to not actually take too big of a hit. So I think that's a really big bad habit he's gotten into. I think that's something Bill should know from when Brady was here last. So I think that's something we can try and take advantage of and try and get a few interceptions to make this game close.
Yep, I agree.
And I think the other thing too, one of their cornerbacks, Sean Murphy Bunting, one of the starting cornerbacks, is on injured reserve. So that's actually a key area that where the Patriots should be able to target the cornerbacks as long as the offensive line gives them enough time to attack the corners. I think that's the weakest part of their team would be corners and safeties and that sort of thing. So being able to attack the passing game is going to be key for them here. Areas of concern for you?
I'd say you could argue that, like we said, for error opportunity, I alluded to a little bit, since no one knows Brady and Gronk better than Bill. You could say no one knows Bill better than Tom. And then historically, Bill doesn't do great against former coaches. Whenever he goes up against them, lost McDaniels, even former players too, like Vrabel, Flores. So you could say Tom is essentially like a coach on the Buccaneers, considering how we think Arians is a terrible coach.
Yep.
So that's not a good. That could be an area of concern. Another thing is just how good the Bucs offense or receivers and tight ends, and how lackluster the Patriots secondary has been without Gilmore. Yes, they had 4 interceptions last week, but that was more Zach Wilson just playing terrible. So there's going to be some mismatches that Brady could take advantage of, and it's trying to think who's going to cover who. Do you put who do you put on Mike Evans, who's 6'5"? Do you put Jawan Williams, who he made a good play last week, but he's been a disappointment so far this his career.
Yep.
Do you put JC Jackson against Godwin? Is he going to be able to cover Godwin's speed? Do you put Jones on Antonio Brown? Who do you put on Gronk? Possibly Duggar because of his size and physicality, or do you put someone like Phillips, who might be a little better in match or in coverage? So that's just, you have a lot of tough situations you have to think about. I think Belichick, out of anyone, Belichick's mind is the one that will be able to figure it out theoretically. And considering what's on line for their egos, I think it's going to be a good matchup. But I think Bucs offense versus Patriots secondary is a big area of concern.
Yeah. I think the biggest areas of concern would be number one, still would be the offensive line here, because the Patriots offensive line, like we've said, hasn't been good, and the Bucs, the best part of their defense is their front seven. So if they're able to get to Mac before he has time to get those throws out to attack the secondary, that could be a big key matchup there. And I think the other area of concern would be Brady kind of knowing who to target on that defensive side, and kind of what they're doing. So he's played against this defense in practice for 20 something years. So it's not something that it's going to be surprising. There's not any kind of wrinkle they can throw at him he hasn't seen before. So I think that could be difficult as well for
definitely.
him. And then just again, just the run defense, him knowing it's something that Brady is very good to checking into the right play. So just him knowing that their run defense has not been well, he may try and attack that as well too. So just the knowledge that Brady comes with is I think a big thing, where a lot of teams may not use their knowledge the right way. I think he knows what to put them into a good spot. So Those would just be my concerns with it. It's going to be, I think, a close, hard game.
Yep.
But I do have a lot of concerns going into this game.
I agree completely.
Yep.
So I guess going along those lines, I know it's early, it's a week and a half away, but what is your prediction?
Yeah. It pains me to say this, and I'm still salty on the whole Brady thing.
Yeah,
I think the two of us are. And I do think that the Bucs will end up winning this one. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it's probably going to be along lines of 31 to 24-27. So I'd say probably 31-27 just to make it a 4-point game. So I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close too. I don't know if it's just the homer in me or just in Bill we trust, but I think Patriots find a way to pull it off. I think they're going to win 27-23. I think their defense will find a way to, they might give up yards. Brady's probably going to get the NFL career record for most passing yards in a career this game, but I think they might bend but not break. I think they hold the Bucs to 3 field goals, potentially in the red zone or on their side of the field, and then they win a close game 27-23.
Well, hopefully that happens. And I wouldn't be surprised too if it happens. I wouldn't be surprised really either way with this. I would be surprised with a blowout on either way. I think that would be not something I would not be expecting. I would probably definitely not expect it from the Patriots. I would probably put it at, if I had to think, between blow on either end, I would say 5% chance the Patriots, maybe 10% chance the Bucs. And then close either way, whoever wins.
I'd agree.
Basically,
I say less likely the Patriots blow out the Bucs, but
yeah. I think there's a small chance the Bucs would end up blowing out the Patriots, but I don't think Belichick's going to allow that to happen.
Yeah.
He's been having this start on the calendar since the schedule came out, or even before the schedule came out. So it's something that he's been thinking about, something that he knows how to defend him. So I think it should be a close game, and it better be a close game because I'll be there and. Don't want to get my heart worked out.
Yeah, I think if I don't know if it's just like I said, the homer me, but if the Patriots end up losing this game, maybe it means that Patriots will get the last laugh at the end of the season.
Could be, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised at that either. I could see a change of fortune for Brady if that happens.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the Bucs at all?
No, I think that's it. I think out of anyone, this is probably the most anticipated regular season game in NFL history. So I don't think that's hyperbole. I think considering everything that's gone on the last 20 years. So and with both teams being good this year, Bucs were shaky the first half of last year, but ever since midway through last year, they've just been rolling. And Patriots look a lot better than they were last year too, personnel wise and everything. So I think it should make for a good game.
Yeah, should be definitely for a good game. I'm glad that Cam isn't here to kind of screw this up. So not that I have any ill will towards Cam. I think he's a great guy. I just don't think he's a great quarterback. So I'm very interested to see what Mac does. But I'm very excited for this.
Yep.
So on that note, I think we kind of wrapped up for the rest of the show. I just want to thank everyone for joining us. Again, we'll be off next week, but stay tuned. Keep up with us on Twitter at Patriots 300 level pod, and search us on there. We'll have the podcast up, and then just look on Twitter for any of our notes about the blog that's going to be coming up. Instagram too. We'll have clips up on there, and Twitter is to keep the content rolling for you guys. But thank you again for joining us, and just make sure you subscribe, rate, and review on any podcast platform that you listen to. To help keep our numbers going up, and that way you can enjoy us every week without having to search for us each week. So thank you very much, and see you guys next time.